Hello everyone, this is Glen, Guyton, your cultural navigator, come to you with some more tips for my diversity and inclusion trainers, or if you are in the market for a diversity and inclusion trainer, these tips will help make sure that you pick the right person and that you clearly identify your needs that you're looking for when you're talking about diversity and inclusion. Well, one of the tools that I like to use when I meet with audiences who are needing help with intercultural communication is this tool called Foreign to Familiar. It's a very good book. It's been around for a while, and it's pretty simple. Okay, it's maybe overly simplistic, but sometimes simple is better, right? When we're talking about training and when we're helping people to learn different ways of interacting and different ways of communicating. But this book basically boils down intercultural work into two different areas. That's hot and cold climate cultures. That's the simplicity of it. It just talks about how people from those different climates or climate regions, how they interact, how they work, how they understand each other, how they communicate, and how they build relationships. So that's very important as we think about intercultural communication, as we talk about building cultural competency. The international scene, we are living in a more global society, a more global economy. So it's not unheard of that your work may take you overseas, or we will be dealing with more and more people from different countries as they come to the U.S. to work and do trade. So it's important that we know how to communicate across cultures. And there are some differences. Now, let me caveat that by saying that many of us in the professional, successful business world, whatever you know, how we determine success, many of us have learned how to communicate in a very particular style. So we are from a more European, more North American type of style of communicating, which means that we are very direct and emotionally we are very restrained in our communications. And so as we deal with people from other countries, other continents, other regions, we have to understand that people don't always communicate like we do, especially if we come from that more, what I would say, traditional for the U.S., that more direct, unemotional type of communication. So we have to understand when we talk to people, they may not be as clear as we think they should be, and also they may not be as unemotional as we would expect them to be. Does that mean that they aren't communicating effectively? No. Does that mean that they aren't professional or that they don't have knowledge? No, not at all. It just means that we have a different cultural understanding of how we should communicate. So it's very important. If you are in sales, if you are in education, any type of environment where you have to work with people from different cultures, it's important that you understand how different cultures interact, even what they think about family and how they relate to other professionals. So this is a good book, Foreign to Familiar. Check this out. Again, it talks a little bit about warm versus cold climate cultures. And just to give you a short synopsis of the book, it's not my book, so I don't want to give you all of the details. But cold climates, just think about a cold climate region, maybe a mountainous region. But you know, these areas tend to have shortened growing seasons. People tend to keep to themselves a little bit more because, hey, you're cold, the sun is not out, you have a very short time in which you can be productive, so that changes how you relate to other people. In a sense, you have to be efficient because that is what nature has dictated to you. Now you think about a warm climate culture like, hey, Jamaica. You know, Jamaica, it's one of the places that seems just so laid back. It's not because the people are lazy, but it's warm, it's sunny, you have the beach, plants are growing fruits all year long, and so you can relax a little bit. You can spend more time on your family relationships, you can spend more time in your people relationships. And if you're going to be out working, you don't want to work at the hottest part of the day. No, you want to take it easy, you want to lay back and relax, get a cool drink. And so it shapes how you relate to other people. It shapes how people from different cultures see you. Those are some of the things that you need to think about and take into consideration when you are communicating across cultures. What you may see as lazy may just have been necessitated by the climate or some other conditions that you aren't aware of. And what people in the warm climate see as cold and unfriendly, hey, that too may be dictated by the climate. Now, those are some just broad generalizations, and again, this book makes it overly simplistic as we think about how we relate to one another. But we have technology now. We have air conditioning. We have refrigerators. All those things now have changed how people interact and what the priorities are. But we have to understand the roots of cultures, and culture lasts. I mean, it sticks around a long time. It really shapes how we interact and just our basic understanding of relationships. So those are some things to consider as you work internationally, as you start thinking about international communication. Here are a few things, a few tips for you. First of all, just prepare. Prepare yourself and learn about the culture you're going to be interacting with. Read some history. Read a little bit about the region and the habits of the people in that region. Sometimes we think we know what people are doing or how they live their lives because we've seen a movie or something, but we really need to take the time and go a little bit deeper. The second thing is we really just need to take the time and sit back and listen and learn. Often, and I will say as American, often as Americans, we think our way is right. We want to jump right on in there. We want to start fixing issues, fixing problems for people. But sometimes we need to take the time to listen, to find out what's going on with people from other cultures and really learn, because we may learn something new. We may learn a better way of doing something. We don't have all of the answers, and sometimes the pace that we move at as Americans, it does leave us time enough to observe the things that are going on in other people's lives, or we don't understand how things affect other people from different cultures. So it's important to prepare, sit back, take some time to learn and to listen. And then the next thing is you have to be willing to take some risk. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. Ask questions if you don't understand what's going on. Try something new from the different culture, not just the food. Now, most of us stop with food and think that that's enough, but try to do some different things. Go to where the local people go. Don't just stay in your hotel, or don't just stay within your peer group with people that are from the same place as you. But take some risks. Go out and see the local sites. Be safe because you prepared, you've done your research, so you know a little bit. But take some risks after you do that. The other thing is be empathetic. Be empathetic to the needs of other people. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to feel what they are feeling. That is so important. You can't go into every situation thinking your culture is the best culture, that you know everything, that the way you do things is the right way. Because again, you may learn something. And after you spend some time in these cultures, just kind of reflect on what you've seen. Compare it and contrast it to the things that you are most comfortable with. Compare it and contrast it to your culture. And if you are in a business setting or in an educational setting, make sure you leave the appropriate time for feedback. You need to get feedback from the people that you're trying to communicate with, because you may think you're communicating clearly, but you may be getting the message wrong. They may not have understood what you said at all, because you are operating in this very direct, unemotional style, and they receive information totally different from how you are giving the information. So it's important that as you think about intercultural communication, as you interact with people from different cultures, that you take the time or set up some type of way of getting good feedback from the people that you are working with. I'll give you an example of a story that I'll share with you. Is one time I went to South Africa, and every night, without fail, my host family would offer me and my friends tea. They would say, "Hey, Glenn, would you like some tea?" And I would say, "No, thank you." And they, without fail, would leave the tea there. They would make the tea and they would bring it to my room so that I could have tea. And I was like, I know I said I didn't want any tea. But they continued to bring tea. I think I was there for about 10 days. And on like the 5th or 6th day, I finally figured it out because I had taken the time to really observe the culture, right? Maybe it's a little slow. You say, hey, Glenn, you're slow. It took you half the trip to figure this out. But when my family asked me if I wanted some tea, I said, no, I will have some later. And well, guess what? I never got the tea. See, because in the culture that I was in, the family that I stayed with, if you said no thank you, they thought you were just being polite. You know, they just thought you really wanted tea. But of course, when someone offers you something, you say no thank you, but they give it to you anyway. But when I said I'll just have some later, that was a clear indication that I didn't want the tea, that I didn't want it at that time, and if I did want it, I would ask. And so, hey, problem was solved because I learned, but maybe I learned a little too late. I think we were pouring tea out of the window at some point during the trip, but eventually I learned. So if I ever go back to South Africa and people ask me for tea and I don't want tea, I'll know what to say. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short segment on intercultural communication. So important that we learn how to communicate with each other, and sometimes our communication can be lacking even within the same culture, even within the United States or whatever country you are from. We have to learn how to communicate better. We have to understand that everything we do sends a message, whether it's our mannerisms, our smile, what we don't do. Every action that we have, every interaction that we have with people sends a message. So think about that today as you go and live your life. And I hope you have a great day. This is Glen Guyton, your cultural navigator. Have a great day. Bye.